She's come a long way. We've done a ton of metal work to it, regressed some styling, so the bumpers changed to the older style. Did some really cool metal work up front to put these older version snowpack grills in, as they're called, up front. Straightened up pretty much everything after we stripped all the paint completely off of it. And she's been coated with a layer of filler. We don't call it Bondo, it's body filler. A lot of people will be like, oh my God, you slathered the car in Bondo. One, this stuff is about as thick as a couple coats of primer in spots. Most of it's very thin. The metal work was done as close as we can get it, within maybe a 1/16 of an inch in some spots that were pretty crusty, like up here on the front of this fender, some spots on the door. Two schools of thoughts on how to do this. A lot of people say, oh, you've got to spray epoxy primer on first and then do your filler work. It'll cause moisture underneath it, it'll cause rust. I can tell you from experience, I've been doing this since I was 12 years old, I'm 50 now. We strip cars all the time that have had Bondo on them for 30, 40, 50 years, and there's no rust underneath it. So I don't really follow that rule. I like to do our filler work on bare metal because we can get a real good scratch, get real good adhesion of that filler. As long as it's done properly, I feel like this is the right way to do it. It's the way that we choose to do it. So I'm gonna give the car a quick clean. We're gonna turn the booth on. Then we're gonna coat this with some direct-to-metal epoxy. We're gonna cover the whole car with a coat. And then we're gonna come back and we're gonna put a couple coats of polyester filler, which will give us a little more room to get this thing even straighter. I mean, she feels really good right now. The lines are nice and tight. All the highs are gone. All the lows are filled. And I'm looking forward to seeing this thing not spotty and all in one color. So I'm just trying to get any remaining dust and contaminants off of here. It's been blown off a bunch of times. It's been cleaned once already, but one last time before I spray. Go over the whole car. If I feel like my rag's getting really dirty here, I'll maybe think about doing it again, but little remnants of guide coat left here and there. Let's get rid of it. Clean everything up. I like to fold my rag in force, so I kind of got a fresh rag every time. I also don't like to spray my product on the panel because we don't need a lot to do what we're doing here. Pull any little last bits of it off. I don't need to douse it in this because this stuff could react with the filler and mild solvent, but it could cause issues. The name of the game with paint and body work is to be consistent in your process. Most painters don't like to change technique and product all that much when some new fandangled thing comes out, because sometimes what you know just works. And I'm willing to kind of change it up a little bit if something really excites me or someone has a new way of doing something that makes sense. I'm not going to poo-poo new ideas. I'll try things, but we want to make sure that we provide the best product for our customers. So work that we can stand behind. So there's just some things I won't deviate on. Lint-free cloths. I've heard some rumblings about people using microfiber cloths from Costco for this process because you can wash them and reuse them. The thing I don't like about that is, who's washing them? And are we going to get contaminants in those towels, like, other stuff that's in the wash or that's been in the wash? I know at my house, my greasy clothes get washed in that washer, and I don't want any of that stuff on those rags. So I'd rather spend a little extra money on these. We want to try and save the environment, but we can't do it for everything. So I don't mind using these throwaway towels. The ones that I'm using for wiping this, I might reuse for wiping down my gun after we're done. And it's not like I'm using 15 towels to clean this car, so I'm not going to concern myself too much with it. Where we are saving the environment is not using spray cans. We use a pump sprayer. It's Gets filled up by a gallon, makes the product go a lot further, a lot cheaper. Although I think this wax and grease remover here from Exalta is a bit pricey. It's about 150 bucks a gallon, I think, but you don't need much of it. As I'm wiping, I can feel there's probably a couple areas that might need a little bit of attention after prime, but this thing feels like it's good 90% there for my tastes. That polyester primer should take up that extra 10% that's left. And then we're gonna block it real nice. Get everything just a wee bit tighter. And then we should be able to go right into sealer after we do that block. Because this has all been blocked to 120. We'll block that polyester with 180. And maybe follow it with a little 220. Do any little spot work, refinement we need to do. And then I'll seal it and we'll wet sand it and paint it. That ought to do it. Okay, so I'm gonna mix up some product here. First coat we're gonna put on this car is a direct metal epoxy primer. This is an Exalta product. It's Nason. Some will say Nason is their lower line stuff. I mean, this is just epoxy, so we don't need to use super expensive, super high-end stuff for this process. We're just putting one coat on to seal up the metal mostly, put a little bit on the filler, and then we're gonna come back with some high build polyester. But great thing about where we're at in life here is we have a service that comes and services us for all our paint products with Exalta products and all of our fillers, sandpaper, consumables, gloves, things like that. The excellent thing about it is everything I mix gets weighed on this scale, not only to make sure that we get the mix right, but also to track it. So at the end of the job, I assign each product I mix to a job number. It tracks how much we've mixed, what product we've put, and I know my costs so that I can charge my customer accordingly so that we're not, you know, just guessing at what our materials costs are, which is great. So I've already got us set up to mix this product. I'm gonna put my mix size in, which we're gonna do 24 ounces, 26 ounces, because we got a 28 ounce cup. I don't like overfilling them because it gets kind of hard. I'll probably have to mix 2 of these to spray this, but I'm gonna hit OK on here. I'm gonna put my job number in, and it actually won't let me mix anything without putting a repair order number in, which is great. And then I just go here and I hit mix. We're gonna get our scale zeroed out here. I've already got my can on there, so I'm good to go there. Okay, grab my product, everything's numbered here. Look at the screen every time, 491-12, I'm right. And I've already had this mix bank on, so this product is already mixed. And everything is weighed here by grams. So as the scale gets closer, it turns to a finer thing. I'm gonna get close, give it a couple shots, get it real exact. So we're close enough there. Put that back in the mixer. Go to my next ingredient. And I got 4301. This is my activator for this product. Measure that by grams. Nope, I put a little bit too much in, but that's not gonna hurt anything. So when I'm stirring this stuff, I like to kind of sing happy birthday in my head. That's how I know I've got it mixed good enough. So these cups are kind of cool. Again, a lot of people think we're wasting stuff when we're using these because it's a plastic, it's got a filter, it's a plastic liner, and then it's got this outer thing that kind of holds it all together, which is the reusable part. I'm kind of 50-50 on this because if I was putting this in an aluminum cup on my gun, I got to clean it every time I use it. And the solvents that we need to use to clean it are pretty nasty. So What's worse for the environment? I don't know. I mean, this is a little more efficient for me. I mean, I'll spray a couple cups of this today. I'll throw that liner and that filter out. I'll spray, you know, a bunch of cups of the high build. I'll throw that one liner and that filter out. To clean an aluminum cup, it just uses a lot of solvent to do it. The tricky thing with these things is you really gotta make sure they're locked in before you go nuts on it. Grab my gun. So the gun I'm going to use to spray this stuff, again, it's another 3M product. This is the disposable part, is the tip. This is where all the fluid runs through. This is the needle. So this I reuse a lot, obviously. It's a composite gun. This gets thrown away, but I clean this. I'll use this probably 15 times before I toss it. I think, again, it saves a lot of solvent. Which I'm not worried about the cost of the solvent, it's the environmental impact. That stuff's really nasty. So if I don't have to clean a whole gun and I just gotta blow some stuff through this, you know, put this in my gun washer and wipe it down, good to go. So this guy goes in there, got that all locked down. This guy just sits on top of the cup here, twists in. Again, make sure I got it in there right. Good to go, everyone's happy. Nothing's gonna fall in the booth and make a mess. All right, so the booth is on. We're moving air here. This booth actually moves a ton of air. I'm gonna hook up my gun. Always check my pressure. So when you pull the trigger, it tells me where I'm at. I think I'm good to go. Put on my material and my fan pretty much all the way, and I'm going to go for it. You can see 26 ounces. I got almost all the way around the car. Great thing about that is now I know I don't need to mix a whole 26 ounces. I'm not going to waste any product. I'm probably going to mix like 18 because I'm going to come back in and lay down on the ground and get some of the lower stuff. You know, maybe hit some spots that are drying up as it gets dry. So another great thing about this system is I can just hit remix. It's going to look at the last thing I mixed. I'm going to select it. I'm going to change my size. And I'm going to come down to, I don't know, like 17 ounces. Hit OK. I'm good to go. Hit mix. And the same thing again, but a little less product. So there's hardly anything left in here. Now, back in the day before we had a service like this, if I was out of this stuff, I gotta go to the store. These days, because California Color Source trusts us, the store's right here. So when I need another one, it's hanging out right in there. And when I pull that, I just tell them I pulled that. They charge me for it. They come do inventory on Mondays. They bring the product on Tuesdays. If something's missing out of that cabinet, it's their fault, not mine. It saves me a ton of time. So the name of the game with this stuff is consistency in my spray. You can see how good the transfer of the material to the car was with this. I didn't use a ton of material. I'm gonna go finish this up. Well, I would say my guess is pretty good because there's maybe a couple drops of product left in here. I don't know, half an ounce, if that. I'm just gonna let that dry out, dispose of it properly. On my gun, one of the most important things you can do as a painter is keep your stuff clean. So you got this handy, dandy little gun washer that runs on air so we don't blow anything up with it. Clean the outside of my gun a little. The great thing about this thing is I was using primarily clean solvent there because my dirty solvent bucket is pretty much empty. It's not working right now. But clean solvent comes here, I clean my gun, dirty solvent goes down into the sink, goes into another bucket. When I get a little bit in there, because I just replaced everything, I can use dirty solvent first to do a pre-wash, and then I can use clean solvent to finish up cleaning it. So it saves on solvent, saves the environment, everyone's happy. So the next product we're shooting here is it's a polyester primer. It's got this guide coat built in, so it's kind of funny because when you spray it, it's gray, but then it turns pink. And they have like this pink stuff in there that rises to the top after you spray it. And then when you sand it, it's gray underneath there, so it kind of has a built-in guide coat. We still use our black dry guide coat when we sand anyway, but they just changed the formulation, so it's all this stuff. I've been using this stuff for years. It works great. There's a lot of different brands of polyester primer. This is just what we're using. So, you know, we could use the Spies Hecker product. We have some of that on hand. For a big job like this, it's going to be a little more efficient to use this product. I'm going to spray a lot of it because I'm going to use a really big tip in that gun for the next one, the biggest one we have. And then I'm going to spray 2 real heavy coats on there. I want to get a lot of build because as we sand and refine those lines and surfaces, we want them to be perfect. So this is a old school paint mixer. I got this from a nice gentleman who sold his shop. It was a 100-year-old business. His name is Henry Hansel. He gave me some of his equipment when he sold the business. There's now condos there in downtown Oakland. So I kind of like this historical stuff, not just because it's historical, but you know, because it works. It's easy. It's powered by air. There's really no moving parts per se. I mean, it does move, but I just turn this thing on and it's like a cyclone. I still have my dad's old paint mixer, which sits on a table. One of these days when I build a mixing room here, I'm gonna attach that one so that I can use that. I mean, even down to like the screwdriver that I use to open up my paint cans. That's something that was in my dad's mixing room when I was a kid. He would, you know, be drinking a beer, smoking a cigarette, and mixing paint lacquer while surrounded by 600 gallons of flammables. So, you know, just the little things that matter in life, you know, is being able to take my dad's screwdriver that he used to open those cans and use it. Alright, so this stuff is actually measured by volume rather than grams, but I like cheating a little bit because when I go to mix another cup, I won't be able to read the scale here. So I'm actually going to weigh my parts. It's 4-to-1, so I'm going to look at my scale on the side of my cup here, and you can see how thick this stuff is. Go to my 4 mark. So I can see I've got 862. And I'm going to put my activator in there. And measure on my scale. There. There. 982. So now I have a baseline, so when I mix again, I don't have to guess. I can work this activator in here and thin this stuff a little out a little bit so that it'll be sprayable. I'm going to use a 2mm tip in my gun, which is the biggest one they make for that 3M gun, which will spray this stuff pretty nice. But you know, for perspective, spraying this with a 2mm tip, when I'm spraying my clear coat and my base coat, I'm using like a 1.2, so considerably smaller size, but this stuff's so thick it requires that big tip to get through the gun and get transferred to the panel and evenly. I mean, similar to any product that you spray on a car, the more even you spray it, the easier it's going to be to sand it because you're not creating waves with your coats. So while primer's a little easier to spray than clear coat, I would say you still have to kind of use skill to do even coverage, consistent coverage, so that when you're sanding it, you're not taking a lot of orange peel out, you're not taking a lot of double coated areas out. It's hard to paint panel to panel. I used to be able to run down the whole side of a car with, you know, one stripe, but a little older now, turned 50 this year, my body doesn't move as well, so I've kind of learned how to panel paint so that you can get even coverage and slight bit of overlap onto the next panel, which is fine. I've also learned to be a little bit ambidextrous with the gun, because like a product like this, when that cup's full, it's pretty heavy. Your arm gets tired. You need to be able to kind of switch hands to either A, get to a spot that you can't get to with your other hand, or B, just give one arm a break for a little bit. So I can do most of it right-handed, but occasionally, especially when I'm in the booth with clear coat, you get really tired, going really fast. I get really sweaty in the booth because in the suit they just don't breathe that much, and you know, I get really sweaty. When I spray clear, I actually have to wear a headband to keep the sweat off the car. off of myself, off my hands. But it's a really physical process, painting, no matter what you're spraying, because you got to move really fast. There's a lot of science involved, obviously, mix ratios, you know, number of coats, induction time for the product in the pot. You know, let this stuff sit for a little bit. Some products more than others. Some products you got to let sit for an hour just to let that activator get in there. This stuff I'll just let it sit a few minutes, it's fine. You know, but there's a lot of science to, like for instance, we just sprayed epoxy on it. There's a recoat window with that epoxy. It's a long recoat window. It's 24 hours before I have to sand it if I put another product over it. But right now it's got chemical adhesion. It's been drying about an hour. And I can touch it. It's cured enough for me to spray this product wet on wet, as they call it. It'll be just fine. But if I wanted to stop, come in tomorrow morning and spray this product, I can, which is nice, because when we get a little further along in the process, you know, you got to pay more attention to those recoat windows, so that when you spray your base on, you know, you get like 18, 12 hours sometimes before you got to spray that clear over it. So you got to plan your days, you got to plan your time. If you have problems, sometimes it means a late night because you got to fix something. There's been times where my girlfriend's like, "Are you coming home?" And I'm like, "Oh, I screwed up my base coat, I got to fix it. Otherwise, when I go in the morning, you know, I'm going to have issues." So, you know, there's a lot of science to this stuff, a lot of chemistry going on here. But I would say from when I started doing this stuff, when spraying cars when I was 12 years old, and before that just watching my old man, the products have definitely come a long way. They're pretty forgiving. Average Joes can use them technically if you pay attention to the data sheet. I don't think any of this stuff is safe to spray in your home garage. I've painted cars in my garage and it's pretty nasty. It gets everywhere. Booth is definitely something you want to do when you're spraying this stuff. So, and the cost, I'll tell you, when I first started doing this stuff professionally here, when we were painting cars, we could paint a car for maybe $3 to $4 grand in materials for an average job with lower end products, maybe double it with the higher end stuff. It's like 12 to 15 grand now for the products that we're using, just in materials, just in primers, base coat, clear coat, you know, all that stuff. If you're shooting a yellow or a red or a blue, it goes up even more. If you're shooting pearls, you know, the price changes on the base coat. I mean, the clear we shoot, a gallon of it costs about $1,500 mixed. And I'm spraying 5 coats on the car, so it adds up real quick. So I got that thoroughly mixed. I'll mask up here. My gun set up and make this thing look Pepto-Bismol. I use that whole cup of product. I only got one side done. So this product is, while it's a lot thicker, I'm building a lot more of it, going a lot slower, 50% overlap, trying to be as consistent consistent as I can. The interesting thing about this is when people say, don't skim coat a car with Bondo, filler, whatever you want to call it. Guess what body filler is? Polyester. Guess what this is? Polyester. We're just spraying a thin coat of Bondo on the car anyway. So it's the same thing either way. We're going to sand about half this stuff off, but you know, it's a nice even coat. It's got good bonding to the surfaces. The surface has been protected with epoxy. This is going to be great. It's going to look consistent color. Do 2 coats, nice heavy like this. Everything will be great. All right, our polyester primer is all shot. I did 2 real heavy coats, and then I went back a third time just on all these body character lines and stuff so that we have a little extra to sharpen her up. It's all dry now. We're gonna let it cook a couple days, you know, shrink up, and then we're gonna get to block sanding this thing and tighten her all up. But you know, definitely a big transformation seeing it all in one color, even though it's this garish pink that this product is. But when you sand it, it actually turns gray, so it's kind of got this built-in guide coat. Kind of neat. I'm looking forward to seeing this thing get straighter and straighter. We're gonna get 2 blocks on this product, and then we're gonna reprime it. And then instead of trying to put the engine and trans and everything in while we're in fresh paint and everything, we're gonna do that while we're in that final prime, because we're just gonna wet sand it, which is a cleaner process. Last time we saw this thing, it was in the booth. It was pink with all that polyester primer all over it. So she sat and dried for a few days, and the guys started blocking this thing out. So they've been hand blocking this thing with 120 grit. And you know, that pink guide coat kind of marketing thing that they're doing with that product, it doesn't work great. So we spread black guide coat all over it, dry. They've blocked this thing 120 grit, 180 grit, all the way through. And you know, like expected at this stage, couple little things required a little filler, a little more work had to be done down here. Looks like there's a little bit of sanding to do yet, a little bit up here, maybe some pinholes, a few things, but overall the car is in, you know, it's significantly straighter than it was when it came into this shop for sure. And all the right products are on it, and I think a little tiny bit of tightening up, and we can reprime this thing. And then the next step is gonna be putting the drivetrain in. So before we paint this thing, we're actually gonna stab the LS in here so that we're not hovering above fresh paint. We're gonna put the radiator in, we're gonna put the transmission in, we're gonna get the drive shaft made, all that stuff. And we're gonna get all those components in here before paint, because one, I wanna make sure that we don't have to do any modifications, drill any holes, do anything. I don't like to do that in fresh paint. 2, we're kind of beyond our really dusty phase. The next phase of primer is all going to be wet sanded, so it's a cleaner process. We're not going to get a bunch of dust and garbage up in that engine bay and all those new components. So, and really, it's just I think it's the right way to do a job like this, because you know, when you've got a mechanic and we've got fresh clear coat, beautiful paint, and he's leaning over this stuff, fender cover or not, something can happen, and we want to minimize that. So, you know, next phase, reprime, put that engine in, and then once all that stuff's in, we'll wet sand that primer, get it all masked up, get it back in the booth, make it look pretty.